everyone, I'm Maddie of EVVils Cosplay, and for my first video ever, I'm going to be showing you how I made Jinx's Fishbones prop from League of Legends. So, let's get started. I purchased 2 different sheets of EVA 38 foam from TNT Cosplay Supply, and honestly, it was the best foam I've ever used. It's super smooth, dense, and easy to cut, shape, and mold. I got one 24-inch by 60-inch sheet at 10mm thickness, and another one of the same size but at 4mm thickness. I also went to my local hardware store and bought a 2-foot PVC pipe that was about 4 inches wide. This would serve as the base of the gun, and I adhered everything to it. For tools, I used a heat gun I got off Amazon for about $20, called the Protect 1500 watt 9-piece heat gun kit and carry case. I also used the Dremel 3000 rotary tool kit with a small sanding band, and an airbrush and compressor kit from Central Pneumatic. Other necessary items I used include contact cement, a hot glue gun and sticks, Mod Podge, Kwik seal, airbrush thinner, silver spray paint, black spray paint, clear enamel spray paint, black acrylic paint, a light brown leather belt, yellow-orange transparent lighting gel filters, yellow LEDs, lithium button coin cell batteries, an X-Acto knife and extra blades, scissors, a pencil, paintbrushes, a ruler, a T-square, thick poster paper, a hammer, a sharp nail, and googly eyes. So the first step of the process was cutting out the templates that I would use to transfer onto the foam. So using a ruler and frankly just eyeballing it, I measured out each component of the gun. There's nothing too scientific about it. It was just a lot of trial and error and lucky guessing. Once I had those sketched onto the poster paper, I cut them out and placed them onto the pipe to make sure everything fit. The templates could then be transferred onto the foam just by tracing them with a light pencil. If there were pieces with details, like the holes on the top piece, I use a penny to trace perfect circles onto the foam. To cut out the pieces, I just use an X-Acto knife. I used many extra blades because the foam dulls them rather quickly, so be sure to stock up. For straight edges, I ran the X-Acto knife against a T-square to get a perfect line. For the eyes, I cut out the shape all the way through. I used a separate thin piece of foam to layer behind it, creating a bit of depth. Some of the pieces needed multiple layers of foam in order to be the correct width. I glued 2 layers of the fin together with contact cement, and later attached it to the top body piece after it was dremeled. I also adhered the headpiece to the nose piece with contact cement to create a seamless point. For the pieces that had a layer of trim around the edges, I had to glue the 2 separate parts together as well. The handle is 3 layers of EVA foam stacked on top of each other. Finally, I added googly eyes to the head to look like bolts once they were painted. With all my pieces cut out of the foam and some adhered, I used my heat gun to seal the pores of the foam to make it easier to paint. I also used the heat to form, shape, and bend some of the pieces that needed to be curved. However, when the foam is heated, it expands and opens up small cuts, so those needed to be filled with Kwik seal to make the surface totally smooth and free of any blemishes. Once all the crevices were filled with Kwik seal, it was time to Dremel and smooth everything out. I used the Dremel 3000 with a small sanding bit attached. For the holes on the top body piece, I just Dremeled all the way through on a super high speed to create a hole, and then I switched to a lower speed to smooth out the inner circle. After the edges were Dremeled, it was time to cover everything in a coat of Mod Podge to prepare for painting. This is only one of the many ways you can prime EVA foam. I just happened to try it for the first time since I had it on hand and I didn't want to buy Plasti-Dip again. I was pleased by the results because the coverage of the spray paint was very good for just one coat. Since this wasn't armor and the foam wasn't going to bend with my body, the Mod Podge served well for my purpose because wrinkling wasn't an issue. While those pieces dried, I move on to the PVC pipe base. I attached 3 layers of EVA foam rectangles as a way to raise the top and bottom body pieces off of the pipe. I also wrapped around 2 pieces of 4mm EVA foam near the end of the pipe for the 2 back pieces to sit on. I wanted to close the back end of the pipe somehow, and I just happened to have a plastic food container that fit the exact diameter. Once everything on the pipe was dry and put together, I sprayed it with a few layers of Krylon black matte spray paint. While that dried, I returned my attention back to the other parts of the gun. I brought the primed body pieces outside to spray them with the silver spray paint. I sprayed everything individually before gluing the entire thing together, which makes it much easier to get a precise paint job on each piece. I then proceeded to frantically airbrush the corners and crevices of the body pieces with black paint in order to give it a grungy dimensional look. I used the airbrush thinner and mixed it with black acrylic paint until it was the consistency of milk, loaded that into my airbrush, and gave it a go. I definitely recommend testing the flow and power of your airbrush to get used to the pressure before spraying on your final product. Then, once dry, I covered all the painted pieces with a clear coat. Once those pieces were dry, it was time to adhere everything together. I used contact cement for some parts and hot glue for others, both of which I do not recommend. The contact cement takes way too long to cure, and the hot glue just breaks off too easily. So, after endless hours of suffering, I finally managed to glue everything on. But please, if you know a better method of gluing, let me know. Once everything was painted and glued, I was able to install LEDs in the eyes. I cut out 2 small rectangles out of the lighting gel sheets and glued them on the inside of the head behind the second layer of the eye. I definitely could have hooked up the lights to a switch. It would have been much more professional and way cooler, but I just didn't have enough time. Also, I was pleasantly surprised with how the batteries worked. They lasted for about 72 hours and just got dimmer over time. The final touch was the leather belt. Of course, the belt I had was way too long, so this is where the hammer and nail came in. I used the hammer and nail to poke a new hole in the belt after measuring where I wanted the belt to loop around the top and bottom body pieces. I then just cut off the excess. And that's about it. If you made it to this point in this terribly unorganized video, thank you so much for watching, and I really hope this helped if you ever decide to make Fishbones on your own. So if you have any additional questions, I will be more than happy to answer them either below in the comments, or you can message me on my Instagram @evvils. So this is probably the point in the video where YouTubers say to like, comment, and subscribe, but I feel like no one really listens to that, so I'm just gonna awkwardly end the video now.